Hello guys, welcome to the second video. In the first video we discussed about 5 requirements of our CRM application, and in the second video and I said that I'll discuss about the remaining 5 in the second video. Well, guess what, I'm not going to explain you those 5 requirements, not in this video. Maybe I'll explain about that in the future videos if time permits and if the response is good. And one more reason why I don't want to explain you guys the remaining 5 requirements is because I believe that to start preparing test scenarios and test cases we should at least have minimum requirements, and we are handy with 5 requirements in our situation. Well, at least I have explained you those 5 requirements, so we are ready to go now. And in this video we'll discuss about functional requirements for this first one, that is the FRS for the first one, and we'll also prepare test scenarios and test cases for this first requirement. So the first requirement was software should be used by authentic users. So to meet this requirement we have come up with this login page design. In real-time situations what happens is we are not handy with these UI screens because the screens are in development phase, so obviously we cannot see those screens, and the idea is to write test scenarios and test cases before we see the screens. So this is the basic FRS template I have prepared, and it has a screen name, it has a serial number, object name, description, precondition, postcondition, and comments or remarks if any. So let's start writing functional requirements for our first page, that is the login page. When you think of a login page, what basic objects or basic functionalities a login page should have? Well, it should have a username, a password, a submit button, and a cancel button. These are the 4 basic functionalities a login page should have, a normal login page will have. So let's write those objects here, let's mention those objects here. The first one was username, and the next one password, and the next one submit, and the next one cancel. So these are the 4 basic objects or functionalities that a login page will have, and let's also assume that client wants these 4 functionalities in his login page. So let's start writing description for the first one, that is username. So username will be a text box, and valid values it should accept are alphanumerics only, that is the user name should accept only alphanumeric values, and minimum characters it should have let's say 4, and maximum characters it should have let's say 15. And will this be a mandatory field? Yes, username should be mandatory. You just cannot skip this username or leave the username blank and proceed. So this is the basic description for our username object. What it has is, what it explains is the username should be a text box, and the valid values it should accept are alphanumerics only, no spaces allowed, no special characters allowed, and no numbers allowed. no digits allowed, and the minimum characters it should accept are 4 and the maximum characters 15. So if we give 3 characters in username, it should not accept, and if we give 16 characters in username, it should not accept. So valid are 4 to 15, and it's a mandatory field. We just cannot leave this username blank and proceed to the next one. So this is the basic. Let's assume that this is the basic requirement given by the client for username, object or functionality. Now let's copy paste this. And the password, the description for password is also given. Now we have copy pasted. So password, so password is a text box, and the valid values it should accept are alphanumerics. Let's say it could also accept digits, and the minimum characters 6 and the maximum 15, and yes, it's also a mandatory field. So this is the description for password field, and the submit should be a button, and cancel should also be a button. So now the precondition and post condition for this user name field, just leave these things blank here, and leave precondition and post condition for password blank, and precondition for submit button would be the user should have valid, at least there should be a user with what I'm trying to say here is a user should have valid credentials, should have valid credentials, or there should at least be a one user with valid credentials. And post condition is, that is, after clicking this button what happens is the post condition, and the post condition here would be user should log in the application, or he should be navigated to the welcome page. So now submit button, we have finished with the submit button. Now actually the submit should be a button, and the precondition for submit is at least one user should have valid credentials here to check the functionality of this submit button, and the post condition is after giving valid credentials in username and password, the user should able to log on, he should use the application. So the cancel button precondition, just to leave that blank, actually you won't have any precondition for cancel button. And the post condition that is what happens after you click cancel button. So should refresh the page. So now these are the functionalities, these are the functional requirements for login page now, that is username, password, submit and cancel. Now let's save this. When we are preparing test scenarios and test cases, we won't have UI screens. What we'll have is, we'll have this document, that is, we'll have these requirements. So from these requirements we should prepare test scenarios and test cases. So the next step would be to prepare test scenarios. Let's go to the test scenarios document, and here I have prepared a basic template of a simple test scenario document, and it has the screen name we are writing test scenarios for, and prepared by tester's name here, and designation, if you can omit this field designation, and the date, and your company logo if you want to add, and it has serial number, scenario ID, and description of the scenario, precondition of the scenario, post condition, now priority and comments. So let's write scenarios for this first one, username. Well, before writing scenarios for the username, let's write scenarios for, let's say, submit button first. Give some gap here and write scenario ID. Let's write the scenario ID afterwards. First write the description. This is the description for submit button now. So description could be verify the functionality of submit button, or you could also write check the login process. So here the scenario for submit button is verify the functionality of submit button, or you could also write check the login process. Now the precondition would be it should have at least one user should have valid credentials. User should have valid credentials. Now the post condition is system should navigate, or application should navigate or display welcome page. That is, precondition is what are the requirements before checking this functionality of a submit button, and post condition is what happens when that submit button is clicked. Priority, let's give that high priority, because without logging in the application we cannot use that application. So if submit button does not function properly, or the functionality of submit button is not proper, it's a defect, it's a severe defect. So let's give the priority high, and the next scenario would, let's write the scenario for cancel button. Verify the functionality of cancel button. Cancel button. Now here precondition would be nothing actually, or at least a few, let's say at least one field should be filled with data. So now the post condition is should refresh the page. Priority,